My name is Emily Morrison. I'm 28 years old. And the strange thing about being called the golden child is that you don't realize it's a trap until the moment it stops protecting you. By then, it's already too late. 3 months ago, I destroyed my brother's life. Not by accident, not in a moment of weakness, but slowly, deliberately, one choice at a time. And at the time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt powerful. Daniel Morrison is 3 years older than me. He's the kind of man people trust immediately. Steady, predictable, responsible in a way that makes life feel safe around him. He did everything right. Good grades, scholarship to engineering school, stable career, married at 28 to a woman who looked at him like he was the center of her world, Rebecca. They were solid, the kind of couple people point to when they talk about stability. And then there was me. I was the opposite of everything Daniel represented. I was charming, social, the kind of person who could talk her way out of anything. And I did, my entire life. I failed out of college in my sophomore year. My parents called it finding myself. I couldn't hold a job longer than 8 months. My dad always knew someone who was willing to give me another chance. At 24, I crashed my car after drinking too much. My father paid for a lawyer, reduced the charge, bought me a new car. At 26, I couldn't make rent. My mom covered it for 6 months like it was nothing. At 27, I got engaged. And then I called it off 2 weeks before the wedding because I wasn't ready. My parents paid back the deposits, told everyone it was mutual. Clean, easy, no consequences. Every time I fell, someone caught me. Every time I messed up, someone fixed it. And Daniel? He watched. He never said anything. That was the worst part. He just watched me fail upward while he carried expectations I never had to face. I knew it wasn't fair. I just didn't care. Because being the golden child, it felt like being untouchable. 6 months ago, I lost another job. Sales position. Official reason? Performance issues. Real reason? I stopped showing up. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Another boyfriend had just kicked me out. No money, no backup plan. So I moved back into my parents' house, my childhood bedroom, at 28 years old. Sunday dinners were still a thing. Family tradition. Daniel would come over every week. And he always brought Rebecca. They'd been married 3 years by then. Comfortable. Stable. Everything I wasn't. At first, I didn't notice her like that. She was just Rebecca, my brother's wife, part of the background. But then something shifted. It was small. The way she laughed at something I said a little longer than necessary. The way she sighed sometimes when Daniel talked about work. Subtle, almost invisible boredom. The way she looked at me like I was interesting. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. "You look amazing today, Rebecca," I said once casually. Daniel smiled. She always does. Rebecca laughed, but she glanced at me, just for a second too long. Mitz. It started with small things. Comments, jokes, conversations that stretched a little further than they should. "You're way funnier than Daniel gives you credit for," I teased one night. She smiled. "Don't let him hear you say that. He knows it's true." Daniel just shook his head, amused. He didn't see it. Didn't see the shift happening right in front of him. I knew. That's the part that matters. I knew exactly what I was doing. And I could have stopped it. I should have stopped it. But I didn't. Because there was something intoxicating about it. Something addictive. Watching Rebecca respond to me. Watching something build that wasn't supposed to exist. It felt like power. Like I was taking something that wasn't mine. And getting away with it. 4 months after I moved back home, Daniel went on a business trip. 3 days. Conference in Chicago. I remember staring at my phone for a long time before texting her. I knew what that message meant. I knew exactly where it would lead. And I sent it anyway. "Daniel's gone and I'm bored. Want to grab dinner?" The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. Then came back. Then finally... Okay. That should have been the moment I stopped. The moment I realized I was about to cross a line that doesn't uncross. But instead, I smiled and started getting ready. Dinner lasted 3 hours. Long enough for the restaurant to empty out around us. Long enough for the server to stop asking whether we wanted dessert and just leave the check at the edge of the table like she already knew neither of us was ready to end the night. Rebecca looked different outside my brother's orbit. Lighter somehow, and sadder. That was what made her dangerous. Not because she was seductive, not because she flirted in some obvious, shameless way, because she seemed like someone quietly starving. And I knew exactly how to make people feel seen. It was the one skill I had never failed at. She told me Daniel had been distant lately. Not cruel, not neglectful in any dramatic, unforgivable way. Just distracted, buried in work, tired all the time, living beside her instead of with her. I know that sounds unfair, she said, tracing the rim of her glass. He works hard. He's a good man. I didn't say he wasn't. She looked up at me then. There was guilt in her eyes already. Guilt and relief. Like she hated herself for admitting any of it out loud, but loved being asked. That was the moment I should have pulled back. Instead, I leaned in. You deserve to feel important too, Rebecca. The words landed exactly how I wanted them to. Soft, dangerous, personal. She looked down, smiled, but only barely. And I remember thinking, with a clarity that still sickens me now, she's going to let this happen. When I walked her to her door, neither of us said much. The night had gone quiet around us. Her porch light was on. Daniel's house, my brother's house, looked warm and ordinary, and completely undeserving of what was about to happen inside it. Rebecca turned toward me. I don't remember who moved first. Maybe he kissed me. Maybe I kissed him. It doesn't matter. What matters is that 1 second we were standing there pretending we still had a choice. And the next, we didn't. Or at least that's what I told myself then. The truth is I had a choice the entire time. I just didn't want it. I left around 2 a.m. I should tell you I felt ashamed. That I drove home sick to my stomach. That I sat in my car and realized I had just detonated my own life. But that's not what happened. I felt incredible. Not conflicted, not horrified. Victorious. I had done the one thing no one is supposed to do. Cross the line no decent person crosses. And instead of consequences, all I felt was this twisted, electric rush. Like I had stolen something precious and gotten away with it. The next morning I texted her. That was fun. We should do it again. She replied 15 minutes later. We shouldn't. We did, again and again, for 3 months. Every time Daniel traveled, every time Rebecca texted to say he'd be home late, every time the opportunity opened like a door, I walked through it. No hesitation, no conscience, no real attempt to stop. There are lies people tell other people, and then there are the lies people tell themselves because the truth makes them unbearable to live with. I had plenty. Daniel doesn't appreciate her. Rebecca is lonely. They were already drifting apart. I'm not ruining anything that wasn't already cracked. She chose this too. All lies. I knew they were lies even while I was thinking them. I wasn't doing this because I loved her, and I don't think she was doing it because she loved me. We were using each other for different reasons. Rebecca wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to prove that nothing was out of reach. Not even my brother's life. Especially not my brother's life. That was the ugliest part of it. It wasn't enough that she was beautiful, or kind, or unhappy in just the right way to make bad decisions feel romantic. It was that she belonged to Daniel. The brother who had always done everything right. The brother who had never needed rescuing. The brother my parents respected in that quiet, serious way they never quite respected me. Taking something from him felt like winning a game I had been playing my whole life. A cruel, invisible game only I was petty enough to care about. At family dinners, I got better at pretending. So did Rebecca. That was its own kind of horror. Daniel would be talking about work. My mother would be passing the potatoes. My father would ask me whether I'd found anything promising job-wise. And across the table, Rebecca would meet my eyes for half a second too long. Sometimes her knee would brush mine under the table. Sometimes she'd laugh at something I said, and Daniel would smile like it made him happy to see everyone getting along. I used to think the worst kind of person was someone who enjoyed hurting strangers. I know better now. The worst kind of person is the one who can smile at someone who loves them, while betraying them in secret, and keep eating dinner like nothing is wrong. 3 months in, Rebecca told me she was pregnant. We were in Daniel's house. That sentence alone should tell you everything about who I was then. His house, his marriage, his future. And there I was, standing in the middle of it like I had some right to exist there. Rebecca was crying when she showed me the test. Not dramatic crying, not the kind from movies. Quiet crying. The kind that looks like the body already knows something has broken and the mind is still trying to catch up. I'm pregnant, she said. For a second, I just stared at her. The room felt unnaturally still. Even the air seemed to pause. My first thought was not, are you okay? Not, what are we going to do? Not even, oh God, Daniel. My first thought was, this is bad. My second was, I need to get out of this. Is it mine? I asked. She looked at me like I had slapped her. I don't know. Don't know? We've been trying, she whispered. Daniel and I don't know. I ran a hand through my hair and started pacing. That should tell you something too. That even then, even standing in the wreckage of what I had helped create, I was still centering myself. What are you going to do? I asked. She let out a laugh that didn't sound anything like laughter. What am I going to do? I'm asking because we need a plan. No, she said, wiping her cheeks. I need a plan. You're asking because you want an exit. That irritated me, mostly because it was true. I'm not saying that. You don't have to. I wish I could say that was the moment I became honest with myself. It wasn't. I still tried to frame myself as trapped, cornered, unlucky, as if I had wandered into disaster instead of building it with my own hands. I need time to think, I told her. Rebecca looked at me for a long moment, not pleading, not angry, just disappointed. And that somehow felt worse. I left her there, crying in the house she shared with my brother. I drove home and sat in my car for almost an hour, trying to decide what version of myself I was willing to be. There were only two real choices: tell Daniel the truth and watch everything explode, or say nothing. Let Rebecca handle it. Hope the baby was Daniel's, and this whole thing disappeared like every other problem in my life had disappeared. I chose silence. Of course I did. Rebecca texted me that night. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. The next morning, "Emily, please don't do this." I ignored that too. Then, "What's the plan?" Then, "You can't just disappear." But disappearing was exactly what I did best whenever consequences started taking shape. I blocked her number. Told myself I was creating distance so she could focus on her marriage. Told myself that if the baby turned out to be Daniel's, then all of this would fade into something ugly but survivable. Told myself whatever I needed to in order to avoid the truth. I was abandoning her because I was scared. Not scared of losing Rebecca. Scared of losing comfort, protection. The version of my life where I was still the person bad things somehow happened around, but never to. A week later, Daniel told my parents the news at Sunday dinner. Rebecca sat beside him, pale and quiet, her hands folded in her lap. Mom burst into tears immediately. Happy tears. Dad clapped Daniel on the shoulder. "A baby," he said, smiling. "That's wonderful." Daniel looked at Rebecca with this softness in his face that made something inside me tighten. Not guilt, not yet, but something adjacent to it, something harder to ignore. "We're really happy," he said. Rebecca smiled. "It was a good performance. Maybe mine was better." I smiled too, said congratulations, hugged my brother, asked the kind of questions a normal sister would ask. "How far along is she? Have you told her parents? Do you know what you want if it's a boy?" I stood there inside the lie and helped decorate it. And what's worse, after the panic of those first few days passed, relief started creeping in. Because Daniel believed the baby was his. Because nothing had exploded. Because once again, it looked like I might get away with it. That was the drug, really. Not Rebecca. Not even the affair. The possibility that I could do something monstrous and still escape the bill. Months passed like that. Rebecca stopped trying to contact me for a while. I told myself that meant she had accepted reality. What it really meant was that she was carrying a weight I had dumped entirely onto her shoulders. By the 4th month of her pregnancy, I had almost convinced myself the worst was over. Then she cornered me outside during family dinner. I had just stepped onto the back patio for air when she followed me out and shut the door behind her. She looked exhausted, not just physically, soul tired. "We need to talk now," she said. I thought we were past that. Her face changed at that, something sharp flashing through the sadness. "Past that?" I crossed my arms. "What do you want me to say?" She stared at me for a second like she honestly couldn't believe I was real. "You blocked me." "Yes." "You ignored me for months." "Yes." "I'm pregnant," she said, voice shaking now. "And I still don't know who the father is, and you won't even speak to me." I leaned against the railing and said the coldest thing I had said up to that point in my life. "You're the one who's married. You're the one who has to deal with this." Rebecca flinched. Not dramatically, just enough to show the sentence landed. "I didn't do this alone." "No," I said, "but you're the one pregnant." Her eyes filled, but this time the tears didn't make her look fragile. They made her look furious. "You pursued me." I laughed once under my breath, defensive and mean. "You could have said no." "I should have," she said, "and you should have stopped." Maybe that was the first honest thing either of us had said in months, but I didn't let it touch me. "What consequences are you so afraid of?" I asked. "Daniel thinks the baby is his. If you keep your mouth shut, your life stays intact." She stepped closer. "And if the baby is his?" I shrugged. The gesture still makes me sick when I remember it. "Then you figure it out. You really are unbelievable." "What do you want from me, Rebecca? A panic attack? A confession? I can't help you." "You mean you won't?" I opened the patio door. She grabbed my arm before I could go inside. For a second, her voice dropped. Quiet. Cracked. "I used to think you were selfish," she said. "I didn't realize you were empty." That hit harder than I expected. Maybe because some part of me knew she was right. But pride is a vicious thing. It would rather destroy what little humanity you have left than let you admit someone sees you clearly. So I pulled my arm away and walked back inside. Left her standing alone in the cold. She stayed out there for a long time. Long enough for my mother to ask where she was. long enough for Daniel to glance toward the back door twice, a crease forming between his eyebrows. When Rebecca finally came back in, her face was composed. Too composed. Daniel stood up immediately. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said softly. "Just needed air." He touched her shoulder, gentle and concerned, and I looked away. Because even then, even with everything rotting underneath us, Daniel was still being kind to her. Still trusting her. Still trusting me. After that, I stopped going to family dinners as often. Made excuses. Stayed in my basement room. Told my parents I was applying for jobs or seeing friends or not feeling well. The truth was simpler. Being around Daniel had started to feel dangerous. Not because I was ready to confess. Because he still had no idea. And something about that was finally beginning to rot through the edges of me. Not enough to change. Just enough to make silence feel heavier. By the 7th month of Rebecca's pregnancy, I was living inside a tension so constant it felt physical. Every phone call made my stomach tighten. Every family update felt like standing closer to the edge of something collapsing. And still, I said nothing. Because that was who I was then. A woman who mistook avoidance for survival. A woman who thought if she stayed still enough, the consequences might pass over her and land on someone else. For most of my life, they had. I had no reason yet to believe this time would be different. I was wrong. Rebecca had the baby in early spring. A boy, Connor. I didn't go to the hospital. Didn't send flowers. Didn't text. Didn't even ask how she was doing. I waited. That's what I did instead. Waited to hear whether anyone noticed anything. Waited to see if the baby looked like Daniel or like me. Because even then, even after everything, I was still hoping this would somehow resolve itself without requiring anything from me. Connor looked like Rebecca. That was the first thing my mother said when she showed me pictures on her phone, smiling like this was the happiest moment of her life. "Look at him, Emily," she said. "He's beautiful." He was. Small, red-faced, sleeping in a hospital blanket that looked too big for him. He didn't look like Daniel, but he didn't look like me either. Not clearly. Not enough to raise questions. And for a few weeks, I let myself believe I was safe. 3 months later, Rebecca called me. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Something in my chest tightened before I even put the phone to my ear. "Hello?" Silence. Then her voice. Flat, controlled, wrong. The paternity test came back. Everything inside me went still. "What did it say?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Connor is his." There it was. No room left for denial. No more space to hide inside uncertainty. "Are you sure?" I asked. I don't know why I said that. Maybe because I needed one last second of pretending. 99.9% sure, she said. "I got the results this morning." I leaned back against the wall, staring at nothing. The world didn't shatter. There was no dramatic collapse. Just this quiet, suffocating certainty settling over everything. "I'm telling Daniel tonight," she added. "No," I said immediately. There it was again. Not concern for Daniel. Not fear for what this would do to him. Just instinct. Self-preservation. "I have to," she said. "You don't. He's raising your son thinking it's his. So let him keep thinking that." The silence on the other end of the line stretched long enough that I almost thought she'd hung up. Then, "I can't lie to him forever." "Why not?" I snapped. "You've been lying for a year." The moment the words left my mouth, I felt something shift. Not guilt. Not yet. But something uglier. A crack. Rebecca exhaled slowly. "You really don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" "That this isn't just about getting caught." Her voice broke slightly then, the control slipping for the first time. "This is about what kind of person I have to be to keep living like this." I didn't answer. Because I didn't have an answer. Because I had already chosen what kind of person I was willing to be. And I wasn't ready to change it. "I'm telling him," she said again, quieter now. "Don't!" She hung up. That night, Daniel called me. I knew before I answered. There are moments when your life splits cleanly into before and after. This was one of them. "Emily." His voice was empty. Not angry. Not loud. Worse. Flat. "Come to my house, now." I didn't argue. Didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my keys and left. The drive felt longer than it was. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Not from guilt. From anticipation. From knowing the version of my life I had been living was about to end. I just didn't know what came next. Rebecca was on the couch when I walked in, crying. Daniel was standing by the window, his back to me. The room felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Like something had already died there. "Sit down," he said. I did. My legs felt unsteady in a way I wasn't used to. Rebecca didn't look at me. Daniel still hadn't turned around. "Rebecca told me something today," he said. Each word came out slow, measured, controlled. Something that changes everything. I swallowed. He turned then, and I will never forget his face. Because there was nothing there. No anger, no sadness. Just absence. He told me you've been sleeping together, he continued, for 3 months, in my house. Silence pressed in from all sides. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She also told me Connor isn't mine, Daniel said, that he's yours, that she got the test results this morning. Rebecca sobbed quietly beside him. I stared at the floor, because I couldn't look at him. Not like that. Is it true? He asked. There it was. The last chance. The easiest lie in the world. I could have denied it. Blamed Rebecca. Said she was confused, emotional, lying. I had lied about everything else. Why not this? But something in his face, something in the emptiness of it, made lying feel pointless. Like it wouldn't change anything. Like the truth was already sitting in the room, whether I spoke it or not. Yes, I said. The word felt heavier than anything I had ever said before. Daniel nodded once. Slow, like he had expected that answer. Then he looked at me again. Not as his sister. Not as someone he had grown up with. As if I were a stranger. Get out of my house. Daniel! Get out! His voice didn't rise, but something underneath it made my chest tighten. Before I do something we both regret. I stood, walked to the door, didn't look back, because I knew if I did, there would be nothing there for me anymore. I drove home and told my parents everything. Every detail. The affair. The baby. The paternity test. I really thought, that this would be like every other time. That they would be shocked, disappointed, but ultimately, on my side. That they would help me fix it, find a way through it, make it manageable. That's what they had always done. Mom cried. Not softly, not quietly, the kind of crying that sounds like something is breaking. Dad didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat there, looking at me, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. What you did, he said finally, is unforgivable. The word landed harder than anything Daniel had said, because it came from him. I know, I said quickly. I'll fix it. I'll talk to Daniel. You can't fix this. His voice was calm, final. And for the first time in my life, he didn't sound like someone who was about to step in and make things better. What do you mean? I asked. He leaned back in his chair. Exhaled slowly. It means you're on your own, Emily. The sentence didn't make sense at first. You've never been on your own, he continued. Not once. Every mistake, every failure, we caught you. My throat tightened. But this, he said, this is yours. Dad! No. He shook his head. We're not fixing this for you. Something cold spread through my chest. Fear. Real fear. The kind I had never felt before. Because for the first time, there was no safety net. The next few weeks blurred together. Daniel filed for divorce. Rebecca moved out. The house felt different. Quieter. Like something had been removed from it permanently. My parents barely spoke to me. And when they did, it was distant. Careful. Like they didn't quite know who I was anymore. Or maybe they did. And that was the problem. Then the court came. Rebecca filed for child support, for paternity, for custody. I showed up without a lawyer, still thinking, somewhere deep down, that I could talk my way through it, explain my situation, make them understand. Ms. Morrison, the judge said, looking over her glasses, you are not the child's legal parent, but your actions contributed to the situation. I don't have a job, I said quickly. I'm living with my parents. I can't afford. Then get a job. Her tone didn't change. Child support is set at $1,200 a month based on imputed income. You have a degree. You are capable of working. I can't pay that. Then you will be in violation of a court order. Just like that. No sympathy. No adjustments. No one stepping in to soften the blow. This was what consequences felt like. Heavy. Immediate. Non-negotiable. Rebecca also pushed for custody. Not full. Joint. Connor deserved to know his mother, even if I didn't want to be one. I lost that too. Alternating weeks. Responsibility I had spent months trying to avoid. Now written into law. Bail. 6 months after Connor was born. Dad died. Heart attack. Sudden. Mom called me in the middle of my shift. The warehouse job I had finally managed to get. $13 an hour. The only place that would hire me. Your father's gone, she said. Just like that. No warning. No time to prepare. I left work. Drove to the hospital. Got there 20 minutes too late. Daniel was there, standing next to Mom, holding her. They looked like a family. I walked in, and it was like stepping into a room where I didn't belong. Daniel glanced at me, then looked away, like I wasn't there. Mom hugged me, briefly, then went back to him. And I understood something then. I wasn't the center anymore. I wasn't even part of the circle. At the funeral, I sat in the back, alone. Daniel sat in the front with Mom, with Rebecca's parents, with friends, with people who still saw him as part of something whole. No one sat next to me. No one spoke to me. I had never felt so visible and so completely invisible at the same time. After the service, a man approached me, Suit, folder, professional smile. "Ms. Morrison," he said, "I'm your father's attorney." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "Your father updated his will 3 years ago," he continued. "I need to inform you that you have been removed as a beneficiary." The words didn't register immediately. "What does that mean?" "It means you inherit nothing." I stared at him. "That's not possible." "Your father was very clear." "Everything goes to Daniel?" "Yes." The room tilted slightly. "There is also a letter," he added. "It will be mailed to you." I read that letter alone, in my room. The same room I had run back to every time life got hard. The same room that had always been a place of safety. Until now. It was 3 pages. Handwritten. Dated 3 months before he died. Before the affair came out. Before everything exploded. And somehow, he already knew. I read the letter 5 times. Then a 6th. Like if I stared at the words long enough, something inside them might change. It didn't. "Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And by now, you already know I've left you nothing. This isn't punishment, even if it feels like it. This is consequence." I remember my hands shaking as I turned the page. Not because I didn't understand what he was saying, but because I did. Too clearly. "For 28 years, I protected you from every consequence you should have faced. Every failure, I caught you. Every mistake, I fixed. Every time you needed saving, I was there. I thought I was being a good father. I thought I was showing love. I was wrong." I had to stop reading, just for a second, because something in my chest was tightening in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. Not anger. Not denial. Something closer to recognition. I didn't raise a strong daughter. I raised someone who believes rules don't apply to her. Someone who believes she can take whatever she wants and someone else will clean up the damage. Someone who confuses charm with character. My throat burned. Because this wasn't new information. Not really. It was just the first time someone had said it, without softening it, without loving me around it. By the time you read this, I believe you will have done something that cannot be undone. I don't know exactly what. But I know you, and I know Daniel, and I know that one day, your need to take what isn't yours will cost him something he can never get back. Give me sauce. I closed my eyes, because he was right. He had written that before he knew about Rebecca, before Connor, before everything, and somehow he had still seen it coming. So I'm doing now what I should have done 28 years ago. I'm letting you face consequences, real ones. Daniel gets everything because he earned it. You get nothing because you haven't. The last part was shorter. But it hit harder than everything else. I love you, but I don't respect who you've become, and I won't fund it anymore. Dad. I sat there for a long time after I finished. Not crying. Not yet. Just sitting. Because for the first time in my life, there was no one left to argue with. No one left to blame. No version of the story where I was misunderstood or unlucky or caught in something I didn't choose. Just the truth. Plain. Unavoidable. I had done this. All of it. I'm 31 now. 3 years since Dad died. 3 years since Daniel stopped speaking to me. 3 years since everything collapsed. And this is what my life looks like now. I live in Daniel's basement, the house he inherited, the house that used to be my parents'. I pay him $200 a month in rent, the cheapest place I could find. We don't speak, not ever. Sometimes we pass each other in the hallway. He doesn't look at me, doesn't acknowledge me. It's like I'm not there, like I died 3 years ago and no one bothered to bury me. He remarried last year. Her name is Sarah. She's kind, professional, calm, the kind of woman who doesn't carry chaos with her. The opposite of me. They have a daughter now, 6 months old. I've seen her once. From across a grocery store aisle, Daniel was pushing the cart. Sarah was walking beside him, talking about something small. Normal. He smiled, kissed her forehead, the same way he used to do with Rebecca. The same way I remember from before I turned his life into something he had to rebuild from scratch. I stood there longer than I should have, watching them, watching what his life looks like now. Whole again. Different, but whole. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't just destroy what he had. I forced him to create something new, something better. And I'm not part of it. I never will be. I work at a warehouse, $13 an hour. I make about $2,100 a month. Child support takes $1,200 of that, automatically, before I even see it. That leaves me $900 for everything. Rent, food, gas, phone, life. I'm behind on payments, $4,800 behind. They garnish my wages now, take more when they can. There's no arguing with it, no explaining my situation. No one cares. This is what responsibility looks like, even when you don't want it. I see Connor every other week, court ordered. He's 3 now, old enough to ask questions. the kind that don't have easy answers. Why don't you have a house? Why do we stay at grandma's? Where's mommy? I try. I really do. But there's no version of the truth that fits into words a 3-year-old can understand. So I give him pieces. I made mistakes, I told him yesterday. Big ones. He nodded like that meant something to him. Like he understood. He doesn't. Not yet. One day he will. And I don't know what he'll feel when he does. But I know what I would feel. Rebecca hates me. She doesn't hide it. Every pickup is the same. You're late again. Child support is overdue again. Connor asked about you this week. She's not wrong. About any of it. I don't fight her. I don't defend myself. Because what would be the point? There's nothing left to say that changes anything. Mom died last year. Stroke. She was 66. I found out she updated her will too. Everything to Daniel. Nothing to me. No letter this time. No explanation. Just silence. Total inheritance from both parents? 0. Daniel received everything. The house, the investments, the life insurance. Roughly $2 million. I got nothing. Nothing, and a life I built out of the worst decisions I've ever made. My friends are gone. All of them. Kyle, my best friend since college, called me 6 months after everything came out. I can't do this anymore, he said. I can't be your friend after what you did. That was it. No fight. No second chances. Just gone. Everyone chose Daniel. Of course they did. He was the victim. He did everything right. I was the woman who slept with her brother's wife, who destroyed a marriage, who had a baby she didn't want. There's no version of that story where people stay. I tried dating. Once. Maybe twice. It never lasted. People ask questions about family, about the past. And eventually, they find out. Small town. Stories don't disappear. They just wait. And then they follow you. I reached out to Daniel once, 2 years after everything. Sent him an email. Simple. I'm sorry. I know I destroyed your life. You didn't deserve any of it. You were a good brother. I ruined that. He replied 3 hours later. One sentence. Don't contact me again. That was the moment I finally cried. Not because I thought he would forgive me, but because I understood completely that he never would. I didn't just betray him. I didn't just sleep with Rebecca. I didn't just destroy his marriage. I took something from him that he can never get back. Trust. The belief that family means safety. That the people closest to you won't be the ones who hurt you the most. I destroyed that. For what? 3 months? 3 months of feeling powerful. 3 months of thinking I could take whatever I wanted and walk away untouched. I traded everything for that. My family, my future, my identity, my place in the world. All of it, gone. People ask sometimes what I would do differently. Everything. I would leave Rebecca alone. I would respect Daniel. I would build something of my own instead of trying to take something that wasn't mine. I would grow up before life forced me to. But that's the thing about consequences. They don't care what you would do differently. They don't rewind. They don't soften over time. They just stay. Connor is moving next month. Rebecca got a new job. Different state. Fresh start. She filed to change custody. Summer visits instead of alternating weeks. My lawyer said I could fight it. Argue to keep the current arrangement. I'm not going to. Connor deserves better than this. Better than a basement. Better than a mother who still doesn't know how to be one. I'll take the summers. Pay what I can. Stay in the background. Where I belong. Yesterday, Connor asked me where I live. I live with Uncle Daniel, I said. Why? Because I don't have my own house. Why not? Because I made mistakes. Big ones. What mistakes? I looked at him. At his face. At the life I created and tried to abandon. I'll tell you when you're older, I said. And I will. One day. I'll tell him everything. That his mother destroyed her own life. That she hurt people who didn't deserve it. That she lost everything because she thought she was untouchable. I hate who I was. I don't know if I'll ever fully respect who I am now. But at least now, I understand. If you're the golden child in your family, understand something. That protection, it's not permanent. It doesn't follow you forever. It ends the moment you do something so unforgivable that even the people who love you most can't excuse it. And when it ends, you're alone with nothing but what you've done. This is my life now. 3 years of consequences. And a lifetime left to live in them. Because some things don't come back. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned. This is mine, and I built it myself.